Why, hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or late night, whenever you are listening to this podcast on Podbean.com, Apple Podcast, or Amazon Music, or if you're watching the video form on YouTube. What is up, guys? It is James, aka Jimmypancakes20, back here to do a new episode of the Jimmypancakes20 Show, and this is episode 6. This is part 1 out of 3 of my history of Halloween Horror Nights 2008. Now, you guys are probably wondering, what do you mean history? Well, I have gone to a lot of Halloween Horror Nights for many, many years. And so a lot of people, when I used to have my old YouTube channels, would ask me to do history about the events I've gone to. But, I didn't really have time to do it. Or I just didn't want to. So now, a lot of people, because I came back on YouTube and I'm doing this podcast, a lot of people are saying, could you do the history of all the events that you have gone to? So finally, you guys are going to be getting your request of me doing my history of all the Halloween events I have gone to. So basically how the series is going to work is I'm going to do it in chronological order starting from 2008 all the way to 2022, because you guys know that I'm going to be doing my review of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2023 after we go the closing night on October 31st. So that is going to be a review. That's not going to be a history one, because it's happening now. So basically, all the events I'm going to talk to are events that I've gone to in the past. So basically, just to explain, Hollywood, I'm doing from Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood, to be more specific in case you guys need to know. The history that I'm going to be doing for that is from 2008 all the way to 2022. Then for Knott's Scary Farm, the first year I went to Knott's Scary Farm was in 2012. So I may be doing the history of the years I went to Knott's from 2012 to 2022. Unfortunately, as I did mention, if you guys follow me on my social media sites, I am unfortunately not going to Knott's Scary Farm this year. So I will not be doing a review of Knott's Scary Farm this year. I'm going to be returning to Knott's Scary Farm next year in 2024. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing any reviews of Knott's Scary Farm 2023 this year. But I will be doing the history from 2012 to 2022. Also, I went to Queen Mary Dark Harbor. I went to Queen Mary Dark Harbor twice. I went in 2012. I may be doing the history about that. I also went to Queen Mary Dark Harbor in 2009. So I may be doing that year right before the pandemic hit us. Also, I went to Halloween Horror Nights Orlando 2 years. My first year going to Orlando was in 2013, and then I went back again in 2015. So I may be talking about those years I went to too. And I'm also going to be telling some funny stories so there are some funny moments that happened both in 2013 for Orlando and 2015. But when we get to those history, you'll hear about those stories in those podcasts. So basically, we're starting with the first ever Halloween event I went to, 2008. This is part 1. So in part 1, I'm going to be basically breaking down what the story of this year's event was, because this year they did have a story for the event. And then I'm going to be talking about the days that they had it. Unfortunately, I tried looking up ticket prices for that year's event, but unfortunately I could not find it, or it was hard to find. So I can't tell you how much I paid, but I do remember I did get the 10-night pass, and I want to say it was maybe $70 because I also had an annual pass to Universal at that time. So maybe I paid $70 or $80 for a 10-night pass, because I went all 10 nights. So because I was not going to waste my money for that pass. And then I'm going to talk about the main icon, the mini icons, and then we're going to talk about the first 3 mazes. And then in part 2, I'm going to be talking about the last maze as well as the Terror Tram, and then all of the scare zones. And then part 3, I'm going to be talking about the 3 shows that were there. So this is why it's going to be a 3 in 3 parts. So that's what's going on. So I know that was a lot of explanation, but I wanted to break that down for you guys so you know what is happening. So, let's get into this. But before I do, I have a very special guest. I think now I should not be calling her a guest anymore. I guess we're considering her a co-host now. But she's still a guest because sometimes she won't be here for the podcast. You can call her a guest, or you can call her my co-host, however you want to do it. My mom, Marcia, is back with me for this part 1. So, Mom, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
So, Mom, let's talk about your experience. You did not go to Halloween Horror Nights 2008. Your first year going was in 2009.
Yes, that is correct. So I missed 2008, but I watched the videos with James of all the mazes. They looked amazing.
So basically, she's going to be giving her opinion because she only saw it through video form. I got to experience it live. So yeah. So, Mom, if you are ready.
I'm ready.
All right. So, Halloween Horror Nights 2008. This is the backstory. So, I want to preference this, Mom. They do mention that Jack the Clown, they did have Jack the Clown that was there in 2007. So, basically, this story takes place right after the events of 2007's event.
Okay.
So, this is basically the story. In 2007, a maniac, a mental unstable man in a clown getup, aka Jack the Clown, who believe that had the roots of all evil born on the Universal backlot brought forth the Carnage Killers in order to wreak havoc on Universal Studios Hollywood. As soon as the madness ended, all the clowns went back to their realms and the ringmaster took a bus back to Orlando. If you know the story of Jack the Clown, you get that reference.
I get it.
You get it because I did explain it to you.
Right.
I'm talking to the people that are watching this. If you get that reference, you know what they're talking about. One of them, a man in a red and green sweater and a burned vengeance during the revenge of the mob, who had the name of Freddy Krueger. Freddy like a pretend boss. Jack the Clown was a certain monster who brought little children and took their lives. So basically, if you fall asleep,
Freddy will get you.
Freddy will get you in your dreams, and if you die in your dreams, you die for real.
Okay.
And basically, he basically molested children, and he was under arrest by the police, but the police could not charge him with anything. So the parents of the children were basically upset and basically went to where Freddy was living, and they basically locked all the doors so Freddy couldn't get out, and they watched the house or shack burn down. So he died, but then he didn't die in peace, so he came back as a vengeful spirit and was tormenting the children of the parents. Not the parents themselves, but the children of those parents who burned him.
Right.
So basically, the town of Springfield found a way to get rid of him once and for all, or so they thought. The stories of his crimes were made into a certain horror series, Nightmare on Elm Street. The offended clown man, the fan of the boogeyman, is part of the chainsaw killing trio. Freddy would take guests to the asylum where he was born and tried to raise an army of the patients living there who claimed more lives, even though the ringmaster, Jack the Clown, ended the carnage and took off to Orlando. Freddy, meanwhile, was trapped in the utmost of hell, narrated by the clown, and was unfortunate to find a way out. However, he would soon find a ticket. In Springfield, the town who burned the man took vengeance of crimes. The real estate agent tried to sell 1428 Elm Street, the place where Nancy and Joyce were tormented by the nightmare demon. Wherever had enough money, they allowed Freddy to spread into action and lay upon the waste of Springfield in retaliation. Somehow along the way, Freddy's somehow gained the sovereign of state of land with the world of the dreams, wearing the undergarments of the monster, and returned to the place where he was allowed to wreak havoc. Universal Studios Hollywood. With the Joker away, Freddy updated from the Sinister into the dreaming. They were sending Universal Studios Hollywood some of a sort awaking sleep status, where he wrapped the versions of the Universal backlot, and his claws were prying everywhere. Freddy, with his claws minions, wrapped up the toy The children's story instructed the fear of the parent and nightmare. Freddy summoned two of his friends for the previous traveling fair. Jason Voorhees and Leatherface. Together with the help of the strangers, the Titans of Terror would claim the souls of who dare not to escape the learned nightmare. So, basically, that was the backstory for this year's event. So, what did you think about the backstory, Mom?
Amazing. I didn't see the movies yet until James got me into horror, but that's a different story. But it sounds amazing.
How basically, Jack was the icon for 2007.
Right.
He went back to Orlando. Freddy was trapped, and then the town of Springfield was trying to sell his house. And then he basically, came back to Universal to get revenge on people at Universal.
I loved how they did three icons at Halloween Horror Nights in 2008.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Right.
I really liked that.
Right. Yeah, so that's pretty much what the backstory for this year's event was. To sum it up, Freddy is loose on the back lot. He summoned the strangers, his pal Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, and Leatherface, and they're the ones that are causing havoc all through the park.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So, that was the story. So, this is something they don't do anymore as well. They had a slogan or theme for this year's event. There was two themes or slogans for this year's event. Live your worst nightmare and where nightmares come to life. What did you think about those slogans, Mom?
Wonderful. Because I know those slogans were from Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how they do it. Liked how they did it. It sounds like great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, that just sums it up. That's all you have to really say. And then people will, eat it up. Yeah. I really just cannot believe how good it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's all I can say is wonderful.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't go this year, that James went, sounded wonderful. Great.
Yeah. I really wish you could have gone this year. But, you were not quite into horror movies yet. Until a certain movie that came in 2009 changed the whole thing.
Definitely.
And we'll get to that movie when we do 2009.
Right. Yep.
So, the event dates for this year. October 3rd and 4th, 10 and 11, 17th through the 19th, 24th through the 26th, the 30th and 31st, these are all in October, and November 1st. Yeah. It's not until much, much later they started doing it in September. What did you think about that, Mom?
No, I really wish they started in September, like they did in years, the years that we're going to discuss. But the dates were okay.
Yeah.
The dates were okay with me.
Yeah. Well, because you got to think about this, Mom. You know, John Murray brought Halloween Horror Nights back in 2006. They did it in 2007, and then it started becoming more popular in 2008, so they added more dates.
That is true.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's not to the level where they have to start in September. It wasn't at that point yet. Down the road,
it was at that point.
It was at that point. But, you know, for the first year of me going there, I was happy with all 10 nights. And rarely, you know, I think for the past this year, I think they still give you opening night and closing night. But I know for sure this year, in 2008, you definitely got the opening day and you got the closing night.
Okay, got it.
Which is surprising was November 1st.
Right, after Halloween.
Yeah. Because usually now, all Halloween events, usually 31st is their last one. This year, it was November 1st.
That is way interesting, James. Way interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the only year they did it until the 1st.
Oh, no, a couple of years.
A couple of years. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, Mom.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
I like the dates. They split them up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, as I said, unfortunately, guys, I tried looking up ticket prices to give you an idea of how much it was, but unfortunately, with all the research that I did, I could not find the ticket prices. So, now we get to our main icon, which is Freddy Krueger. Do you think he was a good choice for a main icon?
Are you asking my opinion?
Yes.
Yeah. I think, because everybody liked the movies. They probably watched them before they came to this event. So they already knew the backstory of Freddy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, Freddy Krueger's a classic icon, and, they brought him back multiple times throughout the years, They did. But as him being the main icon, that was brilliant. I love what they did with that. So now let's get to the mini icons. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Good or bad?
Good.
Okay. Yeah, I was really interested in this one because, I like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I like the Friday the 13th, and I like the Leatherfaces or
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And then, when The Strangers came out, I think I remember seeing it in the theaters. I remember it came out right before Halloween Horror Nights, and this was a weird movie to me, The Strangers. But we'll get to them in just a moment. But Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, I was surprised, that they did a real good maze with him, and we'll get to that in just a couple of moments. But him as a mini icon, it was okay, but I thought he should have been up there with Freddy as a main icon.
My opinion on that, yes, he should have. Because they both had great movies.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, James. He should have been the second main icon.
And then you have Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre as another mini icon. Again, I think you had Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface. They all should have been main icons. But I understand why they were focusing on Freddy, where he's like the guy that's the dreamer and stuff like that.
Right.
So, I understand why they made him like the focus of the event, and then you had Jason and Leatherface and the Strangers as mini icons.
Maybe because his movies came out first, before Leatherface, before Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
All the movies came out around the same time.
Okay, got it.
But I'm just saying, like, if you think of the event, like, the story for the event that I just read to you, read to you and the audience, I understand why they made him the main icon, because he's the one that's driving the event this year. But I think Jason and Leatherface could have done a good job as a main icon too. But I understand why they made Freddy the main icon and then had Jason and Leatherface as mini icons.
Right, and I could understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them were good. The mazes I watched, all three of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then let's talk about the Strangers as the final mini icon. Now remember, I saw the movie in theaters. It was okay. I understand that was a Universal movie, but I just don't know why they chose with the Strangers.
My opinion is, I don't know anything about the Strangers. Okay? I didn't watch the movie. But they were weird. The scare zones I was watching with them, they weren't very good like the other ones.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah. So
they weren't really scared. They weren't really scaring the guests.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the other three main icons.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get to that scare zone in part 2. But yeah. So, Mom, are you ready to dive into mazes?
Yes, I am.
In full detail.
Yes, because I watched them all with you.
Right. But I got to experience them live.
But when I was watching them, I was very interested.
Yes. All right, so we're going to start, and I'm just going in order of where the mazes were located from the beginning of the park to the furthest one, which is always on the lower lot.
Mm-hmm.
First one, and for this year's Halloween event, they had 4 mazes and the terror tram, and then they had 7 scare zones and then 3 shows for this year's event. This first one was called House of Horrors Meets the Strangers. Before we even get into what this maze was about, Mom. Because, yeah. House of Horrors Meets the Strangers. And this was located in the House of Horrors attraction.
You want me to give my opinion of that?
Before we get into details, yes.
Not good. That was my opinion. But once James described it, and I'll give my full opinion. But
just the way the title was.
Mm-hmm.
House of Horrors Meets the Strangers.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
That's all I can say right now.
Okay, so now we get into the description, Mom. Guess who's knocking at the door? The relentless mass killers from Universal's latest hit film, The Strangers, have invaded the House of Horrors. Come face to face with the man in the mask, the pent-up girl and doll face as they strut the shadowy corners of the haunted castle, poppered by the various hoo-hoo of Universal monster icon, past and present. Terrifying lurks around every corner, making you wish you never walked into this nightmare. This is one place you have everything to fear, but they're only movies, right? That is the description for this maze, Mom.
Do I really have to say it right now, James?
Yes.
Do I really have to say it right now?
Yes.
Not a good description. I watched The Maze with James. But I'll give my final opinion at the end.
Right. Okay. So, if you guys have gone for the House of Horrors, you know that this is a 2-level attraction. There's a first floor and then there's a second floor. You start on the first floor.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. As you walk in, you see a bridge, and there's a flash of Dracula with 2 statues. On the other side of the bridge, you see a dummy of a victim of Dracula. That was normal during the day, Mom.
Mm-hmm.
As you enter the maze, they had the characters from The Strangers in the first room. That was the Dracula room. So not only did you have the characters from The Strangers in that room, but you also had like that fake dummy of Dracula and the victim and stuff. You know, so it was a combination of those 2 in the first room.
Right.
Yeah. Then you walk into the next room, and it's all made up with skulls, and as you get to the room with the bridge, you see a guy pop out that looks like the Phantom of the Opera. Yeah. So basically, after you go over the bridge where you have the dummy of Dracula on the thing, you get to the next room, it's a wall covered with skulls, and there's a bull hole on your left-hand side, and there's a person dressed as the Phantom comes out and scares you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then you walk down a narrow hallway and you get to a cage where you see Nosferatu, the first ever version of Dracula.
Yes. From
the 1900s, like old classic films.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So then you walk down another hallway, you enter a morgue, and then on one of the sides, on the right-hand side, the Bride of Dracula comes out and scares you. So then then you're in an open room, and this open room to the right was like a private area that was employees only. And then to your right was like an elevator for people that have wheelchairs or couldn't walk up the stairs.
Yeah.
That would get them to the second floor.
So there was a staircase and the elevator, yes.
Yeah, and then
I remember that.
And then if you're in this open room, you look up, you see there's a dummy, and then there's an animatronic of the Phantom pretending to hang the body.
Right.
And then when you get up on top of the stairs, you go up the stairs, and then to your right, you basically see like a dummy of the Phantom again, but he's in the red skull outfit from the classic scene Masquerade.
The party scene.
Yes. So then you go to your right, and then you immediately go to your left, because if you went to your right, it would be the staircase that led down, and also to your right was the elevator room to get back down to the first floor for people that need the elevator. So then you go to your right and then to your left, and you're in the hallway, and that's where you see someone dressed up as the Mummy from the Mummy movies.
I remember.
That was like, I think, one of my favorite rooms in that maze. Yeah. Then the next room you walk into, this was my absolute favorite maze. Absolute favorite room in this House of Horrors.
I think I know what room you're talking about.
The Chucky room.
Yep. I knew we were going to get to it.
So you enter a Chucky room, and depending on how many scare actors they had, sometimes they would have double Chuckies. Because there was like 3 or 4 different dummies that popped up of Chucky. And then there was a little area where a little person as Chucky could come out and get you. And then you round the corner, and then on your right hand side, there's like an animal. There's these stuffed animals, and then that's where usually if it was just one person, that's where they would have the live actor of Chucky come out and scare you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I became friends with those performers that played Chucky. I'm still in contact with them.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. And then after you get past the Chucky room, there is a long hallway, and that's where you see more of the characters from the Strangers. So it's basically you exit the Chucky room, it's a hallway, and then in front of the hallway is like a projection of like someone that's holding wires, and they're pretending to be electrocuted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to your right, and then there's a bridge where you can look down into the Frankenstein room.
Downstairs.
And sometimes the Strangers characters would sometimes be on the bridge as well.
Yeah.
The next room was also another favorite room of mine. The next room was all based on Psycho.
Mother's Bates.
Yes.
I remember that one.
Yes. So the first room you see the dead corpse of Mother. Then you go down the hallway and you see a flash of a dummy of Mother pretending to like wanted to stab you from the famous shower scene.
Yes.
Then this section had mirrors, so it was kind of discombobulated because you didn't know which way to go. But if you went for the House of Horrors like multiple times like I did and eventually you did, we knew which way to go. But I would love to like stand back when it was first time people going through there and they got to that section.
And they got lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the greatest, thing. And then you go down another hallway, and then there's a live actor that's dressed as Mother that comes out of the shower curtain and pretends to stab you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go down another you go down another hallway, and you have to go through these hanging bodies.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then you eventually make your way down
the back stairs.
No, then you eventually make your way back down to the first floor.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next room that you walk into is the Wolfman room. That was one of my favorites.
I love the Wolfman room.
Yeah. It was nice and cold in there. If it was a hot day, like they would have that air conditioning so blasted in that one section of the maze.
But with the forest, you didn't know where the Wolfman was all the time.
Yeah.
He just pops out and scares you.
Yes.
Like you're unexpectedly.
Yes. So you enter the Wolfman room. You enter the forest, and then you see on the left-hand side a dummy of a hunter, and then on your right-hand side you see nothing. Then you make a turn, and then the actor, just the Wolfman, comes out and scares you. Mm-hmm. Because remember, he had that long walking hallway where he'd be in one end of the hallway and then just come and charge and get you.
At the other end, yes.
Yeah, so it was like basically he had a if you were in that room and you got to that corner where he would scare you, you could look down the hallway. You can see where he could come out, or he can come out a shorter distance depending on what the actor wanted to do.
Right.
Then you go up a ramp and you make a right and you enter a tunnel where it's spinning, and it's basically supposed to be the Wolfman curse, and it makes you feel like you're turning into a wolf man or a wolf woman.
I remember the tunnel. I remember the first time I went in the House of Horrors. I kind of got sick in the tunnel, but then you get used to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So then, once you get out of the tunnel, there's a little opening on your left-hand side, and there was nothing, but for future mazes, they had some props, and I think a couple of times they had a scare actor on that side. And then the right-hand side, that was another area where he could get you after you get out of the tunnel too. Mm-hmm. Or there were some times where they would have two Wolfmans. One would be in the forest section, and then one would be on the other side after you get out of the tunnel. But on that left-hand side, they had more characters of the strangers that got you. Instead of having a double Wolfman, they had more characters from the strangers on that right-hand side. Then you enter Frankenstein's laboratory, and you see basically the character of Igor. He's like walking around in the center of the laboratory. So you go down this ramp, and then you enter the thing, and it's like one circle. So you're like just going into, it's kind of like a C to get to the next room. And there's a platform on your right-hand side, and they would have the performer of Frankie pretending to be in the chair, getting electrocuted, and then he would pretend to come to life and then try to grab you. That was fun.
I really like that room.
Mm-hmm. So then the last room, you entered a butcher's shop. So what they did for this maze, usually for that very last room, they would usually have a butcher, because there was like meat, and then he would come out behind the meat and scare you. Because, it was the strangers. They had more characters of the strangers in that room, scaring you out. And then as you exited the maze, you had two chainsaw guys outside. But during the normal thing,
You have a butcher there.
A butcher there
during the day.
During the day, but when they did that maze for Halloween Horror Nights in 2008, they had more characters from the Strangers in there instead of the butcher. So that is pretty much House of Horrors meets the Strangers. This was the maze that I didn't go to the most. I think out of the 10 times I went to Halloween Horror Nights, I probably went in that maze at least 4 times. But I spent more times in the scare zones and did the other 3 mazes and the Terror Tram more often than going into this maze. That tells you how bad it was. To me, it was basically the same thing. It was House of Horrors during the day, but you just had the characters of the Strangers in there. That was pretty much it. So if you went through House of Horrors during the day, it was pretty much the same thing, just had the characters from the Strangers. But if this was your first time going through House of Horrors, you would think this is a normal thing, but no. House of Horrors meets the Strangers was only for Halloween Horror Nights. So, yeah. So, this was my absolute least favorite maze of this year's event. And I can't do a rating from 1 to, 5 or 1 to 10 because I just don't want to rate this one because it would be a 1 to me. It would literally be a 1, but I'm not going to do that for these history ones. I'm just going to give you my honest opinion and give you my feedback. But no, this was not my favorite maze of the event this year. Mom, go ahead.
What the heck were they thinking? Okay. I'd rather have not the Strangers in there, but the characters from the day.
As I said, you had the characters from the day just with... Well, I kind of know where you're going with this, Mom, so go on ahead. Sorry.
I would rather have not the Strangers in there, but the characters from the day doing it at Halloween Horror Nights. Worst maze ever. What the heck were they thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I saw it on video with James. No, I did not like this maze. My opinion.
Right.
Seeing it in video form.
Right.
No. If I was giving a rating, a 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I cannot believe that they actually did this. So yeah. So really quick, guys. So the app that I use to record these podcasts, they can only let you do up to an hour, and we're almost at, almost like 49 minutes in. So we're going to do the other 2 mazes, but you're going to see a slight editing point because I'm going to stop this part and then we're going to go right into the next maze, which is Nightmare
on Elm Street?
No, it's Friday the 13th Camp Blood. So this is going to be episode 1's going to be 2 parts edited together. So we'll be right back to talk about Friday the 13th Camp Blood. Alright, guys. So this is the continuation of part 1 of our Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2008 history video, part 1. So this is the next part where we had to do an editing thing. And so the next maze that we're going right into, as I said, as I had to stop the other part, was the next maze that we were going to talk about was Friday the 13th Camp Blood. So, Mom, your opinion on that?
I don't know if I saw Friday the 13th on 2008, but it sounds really, really good.
Yeah. So, this one was located in the old Western Stunt Show arena. Yeah.
Where they had the Western Stunt Show right there.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. So, I was really excited about this one. I was wondering how they were going to do this. So, here's the description for this maze. After a century of murder and mayhem, the eternal evil of Jason Voorhees still haunts the ruined remains of Camp Crystal Lake. The ground is soaked in blood at The ground is soaked in red at Camp Blood on Crystal Lake, where Jason and his gut-slicing machete are lurking through the woods, waiting to massacre their way through the night. Be careful not to misplace bone fragments for firewood, as massive corpses of previous campgoers lay the soil. And if you or somehow survive Camp Blood, don't plan on leaving, because in here every day is Friday the 13th. So, your thoughts on that, Mom?
Blood, guts, killing. Sounds really good in this maze.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. At the time when I went through this maze, as I said, Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface, those were my top 3 my favorite mazes. So, as I said, I can't do a rating from 1 to 5 because The Strangers was the only maze I did not like. All the rest of the mazes I did like. So, that's why I'm not going to be doing a score for the history ones. But if I do reviews of stuff, that's when I'll be doing the scores. So, are we ready to get into Camp Crystal Lake or Camp Blood?
Yes, I am.
Alright, so here we go. The details of this maze. Oh, sorry, went a little too far. Here we go. So, the facade of this maze was born from Friday the 13th, Part 3. As you see the character with the pitchfork in his stomach. That was the facade of this maze, Mom. Yes.
Okay, you see a guy with a pitchfork in him. Interesting before you go into the maze.
Exactly.
Sounds really, really good. When I watched it, I'll give my opinion later.
Right. So, you walk down the first hallway and there's not a Scaraptor. So, Not the first scare. Then the first scare you come across, so after you go down one hallway and then you go down another hallway, you get to your very first scare of the maze.
Okay.
You see a dummy of a dead girl, and you see Jason for the first time. This is before he had the famous mask, or in part 2, he was wearing a paper bag.
Right.
You see him without the mask or without the paper bag. You just see his face.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought he would have a mask on.
No.
Because he's famous for the mask, but you see his face.
No.
Really interesting. Hope the maze gets better.
Yeah. So here we go. So you walk down another hallway and you walk into a room and you see Jason. So basically, after you get past that first scene, with Jason scaring you, you walk down another hallway and then the maze starts to open. So you're in like a big space. That's like the forest. And on your left-hand side, you see basically Jason comes out and he has his famous hockey mask on. So that was the first time you see him with the hockey mask. I'm going to reconfirm. I'm going to go through my notes and make sure that's exactly what it was. Oh, sorry. It's not with the hockey mask. It is with the paper bag over his head. That was from part 2. Okay. Because part 3 is when he gets the hockey mask.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. In the second one, he had the paper bag over his head. So the first scare, you see him without a bag or the mask. The second scare, you see him
with the paper bag.
With the paper bag.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Then you walk down another hallway. Oh, I'm sorry. So you walk into a hallway. There's another scare actor that comes out with a paper bag. Then you get to the open court hallway. So my mistake. It's basically hallway.
One hallway, another hallway.
So it was about 4 hallways. So it was one hallway, you didn't have a scare actor. Then you saw Jason without the mask. And then you walk down another hallway, no scare actor. And you walk in another hallway. Then you see the first Jason with the paper bag mask. Then you walk down another hallway. And then you're in this open court field.
Okay.
So I went a little too fast on that. So when you're in this open field, or aka campsite, Jason scares you again, and it's the Jason with the
hockey mask.
Not with the hockey mask, with the paper bag again. He chases you into the next room. And I should say in that open court hallway, you see a dummy of a camper and a sleeping bag tied to a tree. That's the scene that we're talking about.
I remember that scene when I watched it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The next room you walk into, or the next set, is the tool shed where you see Jason squeezing a guy's head with some tool that's attached to the table. It's supposed to hold things on it. I don't know what this tool is, but it's attached to the work table, and you can crank it to hold something on. But what they did was they had a live actor's head pretend to be cranked by Jason, and then they did the effect one of his eyeballs was popping out.
So that was a live actor in there.
It was not a dummy, Mom. That was not a dummy when we watched the video. It was not a dummy.
I hope he did not get hurt.
He did not, because as I said, they trained the people. And that was the first Jason you saw with the traditional hockey mask.
I like that scene when I was watching the... You know...
Yes.
The maze with you. Really interesting. And just to clarify this, you guys, I've never seen the Friday the 13th movie, so I'm going based off what I saw in the maze.
Bingo. And then, after you leave the tool shed, you're finally going to Camp Crystal Lake. And in this, as you enter the Camp Crystal Lake, you see another dummy. So you had two dummies that were in sleeping bags. You saw one that was kind of like in the forest area before you entered the tool shack. And then when you get to the official Camp Crystal Lake, you see another dummy
in a sleeping bag
that's tied to a tree. So you had two dummies tied to a tree. That was on your right hand side. They were both on your right hand side.
Got it.
And then on your left hand side, then on the left hand side, Jason with the traditional hockey mask comes out and scares you and leads you right into the next scene, where you enter a tent.
I like it how he chased you out of one scene into the other scene. That was brilliant.
Yeah. Then you enter the tent. You see another Jason with a traditional hockey mask come into the tent, and that's a dummy of a girl that's in a campsite, and he pretends to cut her arm off or her shoulder.
But that was a dummy.
Okay. Yeah. After you leave the tent, you're back in the forest, and you see a dummy tied up to a tree. But this time, the dummy looks like he was shot by arrows. So, like, he was shot, and then he was on the tree. He got shot by arrows, and he's, like, stuck on the tree as the arrows are keeping him there. That was on your left-hand side. I mean, on your right-hand side. And then on your right-hand side, Jason comes out and scares you. Again, Jason with the traditional hockey mask, and scares you into the next scene. So then, as you enter the next room, I don't remember what room it was, but you see Jason again, and he's back to not seeing Jason with the traditional hockey mask or the paper bag.
Just his regular face. Okay.
Then you enter a next room where you're entering into one of the cabins. And you basically see an actor in a wheelchair, and Jason pretends to hit him with a cleaver over his head.
Yeah, I remember. But when I finally started watching the movies, I don't remember the guy in the wheelchair in the movie.
That was because that was part 3.
Ah, got it. Okay.
The next room that you enter is the kitchen of the cabin, where you see a dummy of a body over the stove, and you see Jason poking a dummy with a hand axe for the left eye.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Then the next room you enter is one of the bedrooms of the cabin, where you see the classic scene where Jason is pretending to squeeze a guy in the bed.
I'm trying to remember that scene in the movie when I finally watched the movies. But that was amazing.
Yeah. And again, so the actor that was in the bed, they basically had fake legs that was on the left-hand side, and then basically he slid his body in, so like from his stomach all the way up was his real body, and when Jason pretended to pull the legs back, it made it sound like he was getting squished in between the beds.
But his legs were with his body, but those were fake legs they put on.
To make it look like he was getting squished.
Got it. That scene was classic.
Yeah, that was really well done. So then the next scene, you walk into another bedroom where you see another classic scene where Jason spears a dying girl through the bed when they're pretending to have sex.
I remember this one. Classic. Were those with the arrows again?
No, it was with the spear, Mom.
Oh, spear. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember if it was the arrow or a spear.
Right.
It was the spear. Classic.
So then, as you exit the cabin finally, you're back outside and you're in the forest again. But then you turn to your left and you go right into the boat shack. And you see Jason killing the guy with the machete. We're back to the traditional face.
Right.
Or back with the traditional mask.
The hockey mask.
Yeah, he's killing another guy with a machete. The next room you enter is Jason Voorhees' mother's shrine room, where you see the dead head of his mother. Then the next room that you enter is Jason Voorhees' kid's bedroom, where you spent at the camp, and Jason comes out of the closet. The grown-up Jason with the traditional hockey mask comes out and scares you. So you're looking at the child's room, and he comes from the left and gets you and chases you to the next room.
That was classic. I loved how they did that. You're looking at the bedroom, and then Jason just comes and scares you. Really good scene.
Then the rest of this maze takes place outside. You exit Jason's bedroom, and I loved how they did this. Then you're outside again, and you see a girl in a Volkswagen car trying to escape Jason, and Jason is stabbing the roof trying to get her in the car. And that was a live actress in that car.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to remember that scene in the movie, but I'm trying to picture what
movie it's from.
Yeah. But I really like that scene.
Yeah. Classic.
Yep.
So, of course, we're not done with the maze. You thought that was going to be the final scene, but of course not.
Probably one or two more scares, I think.
And you are correct, Mom.
Yep.
Then you get to the next area and you see a grave site where you see a grave digger saying, "Get in here," and try to lead you to safety, but a dead corpse of Jason scares you.
Classic. You're talking to the grave digger, and then Jason scares you.
A dead corpse version of Jason.
Wonderful. I like that scene.
But of course they have to get you one more time. As you thought you were done with the maze, there was one more scare. Jason chases you out, and then you were done.
The grave digger, you thought that was the last scare? Oh no, they have to get you, Jason chasing you out.
Mm-hmm.
Class, really good. I like that.
So, Mom, so for me seeing it live, that's the reason why I went back to Halloween Horror Nights 10 times. I wanted to go for this maze multiple times. Back in those days, those lines were not that long. You could literally do those mazes 2 or 3 times per night.
Mm-hmm.
And I did those mazes, the Jason maze, the Freddy Krueger maze, which is going to be the final one that we talk about in part 1. And then in part 2, we're going to talk about the Leatherface maze, as well as the Terror Tram and the Scare Zones. And then part 3 is going to be all the 3 shows. But just doing like the Terror Tram as well as the Jason, Freddy, and Leatherface maze, yeah, it was worth it that year. It was worth it. Brilliant the way that they did it. See, the first time I went for the Jason maze, okay, I got to the end, I got to where the grave digger was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought it was over, right? And I was not expecting, okay? Because
one more scare,
because the way that they did it was, they have like these doors that you exited, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like a concrete area. I guess that's where the line queue used to be for the Western Stunt Show.
Right.
But there was like nothing in there, right? And then you had these other 2 doors, and that led you back out to Western Street when Western Street used to be there.
Right.
And so you went for the first set of doors. That's where you exited the graveyard set. And you were not expecting anything in this blank area. And then Jason, of course, comes out right from the left and gets you.
And chases you out.
But I was not expecting one more scare because I literally had my guard down. I was like, thank you. And then I just saw people running. I looked behind me. There was Jason, and I booked it right outside. That was the first time I ever went for that maze. That maze. And what sometimes what I would do, they don't usually allow this anymore, but back in these days, they didn't care. I would sometimes stay in that little area, and I just would watch people get chased by Jason, and eventually would just leave myself. But yeah, it was brilliant the way that they did that.
When I was watching that with you, I saw people running out of there, and no one was expecting another Jason scaring you out of the maze. That was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I really wish I could have gone that year. I would have loved the Jason maze.
Right. Okay. But, yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I just was not expecting that. So, it was brilliant the way that they did it.
At the end.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we finally get to the main icon's house, finally. Freddy Krueger. So the maze was called A Nightmare on Elm Street Home Sweet Hell. What did you think about that title?
Nice, because we're going through his house. So that was a great title for it.
Yes, and this maze was located in Shrek 4D's queue. Now, for you people that are probably wondering, what the heck are you talking about? Okay, I've gone to Universal a long time, so if you guys know where Kung Fu Panda is now, the show Kung Fu Panda, that's the same line queue, right? So basically, how it worked is the entrance to this thing is slightly different. So, like, if you went to Kung Fu Panda, you would enter straight like this. Well, the way that the Shrek entrance was back in the day was kind of at a curve like this. And then you had the line queue. And then basically when you got to like where the turnstiles were, if you look to your left, there's like greenery and stuff there now. But where that greenery used to be, that used to be a whole extended queue area for Shrek 4D. When it was super busy, they would use that for
the extra people waiting.
For the extra people waiting. But that got all torn down when they decided to build Harry Potter. But that's where they built the maze. So that all that extra extended queue for Shrek 4D, this is where that maze was located. So yeah. Yeah, Mom. So what do you think about not having this location anymore? We don't have the location for Western Stunt Show anymore, and we don't have Shrek 4D anymore.
I mean, it's sad. I mean, I liked the Western Show and I liked Shrek when I was going with you a lot when we had our annual passes. But I think it was time to get new things in there.
Right. And, because
Shrek was there for a long time.
Right. Yeah. We'll definitely let you know the last times that they used those maze locations. I want to say, if I had to take a guess, Mom, I think it may have been 2012. I think was the last year they used those maze locations.
Because I think the first time I went, they had a maze in the Shrek.
In 2009, yeah. But I'm talking about the last time that they used those maze locations.
Oh, okay.
I wanna say it's either 2011 or 2012. But once we get to those histories of those, I'll let you know, when that was the last time they used those locations. But I want to say it was either 2011 or 2012.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Okay.
So, here's the description for the Freddy Krueger maze. When the town of Springfield attempted to sell the dilapidated house at 1428 Elm Street, Freddy Krueger returned to give the beguarded town a nightmare they will never forget. Your thoughts on that, Mom?
My thoughts on that, when I finally saw the movie, and, James and I were watching the mazes the other day. This is like after I saw the movies. Finally, I got into horror, but we'll explain that later. How how I got into horror. But when I was watching the video, the house looked great. The facade looked really good for the house.
Yes, and speaking of the facade for this maze was 1428 Elm Street, Freddy Krueger's house. That was the facade for this maze.
It was wonderful. The facade was great.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. All right, so let's get into the details for this maze, room by room. So, as we said, the facade for this maze was 1428 Elm Street, Freddy Krueger's house. When you walk into the first room, you see a staircase on your right-hand side. That was like pretending to lead up to the second floor. Then on your left, you saw you head down in the hallway and like these different wall openings. They had the famous saying that was said, I want to say in part 2 or part 3. 1, 2, Freddy was coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, pick up a crucifix. 7, 8, don't stay up late. 9, 10, you'll never sleep again.
Mm-hmm.
So they had like flashes, lights that were showing those all over the hallway. That was the first room.
Looked amazing.
Yeah, I really was surprised on how good that was. So then when you get to the end of that first hallway, before you go down the next hallway, they had a projection of those 2 girls jumping rope. Yeah.
I remember that scene in the movie.
It's a flashback scene where the 2 girls are jumping rope.
Okay, I gotta rewatch the movies.
Yeah,
I'm not remembering that scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but
so then
that was a good scene anyway.
So then you go down the short hallway and you enter, I guess, the kitchen of the house. And the next room that you enter is the kitchen, where you see Chef Freddy feeding a girl named Pukey. And this is a character that was from one of the Friday the 13th, or from one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I don't remember which one.
Right.
But the scene is Freddy Krueger is feeding this girl way too much until she basically explodes. So feeding a girl named Pukey so much food that she accidentally froze up, and she pretends to throw up on you as you're going through this maze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think I was watching the video.
Yeah.
It's coming back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat that much food. Oh no.
Yeah.
I would have got really sick.
Oh, believe me.
But good scene. But I'm trying to remember what movie it's from.
Right. And then you exit that room, and then as you're exiting that room, you see another Chef Freddy that's holding a pizza box, and basically it's called the Soul Pizza.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like he wants you to eat his soul or something. I don't know what that room was.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay.
So then the next room that you walk into is you're going down the high school hallway.
The lockers, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you walk down the hallway. That's the school hallway with the lockers. And Freddy pops out of two of the lockers, both on the right and left hand side. That got me good.
You probably weren't expecting him to come out of the lockers.
I was not, Mom. I was not.
If I went through that maze, I would be running. Goodbye. See ya.
Yeah.
Down the hallway.
So then once you get past the hallway of lockers, you go down another hallway and you see the famous scene where Freddy Krueger is dressed as the hall monitor. It's basically the scene where Nancy is running and the hall monitor says, "Hey, no running," and then she turns back to look at the hall monitor and it's Freddy saying, "No running, Nancy."
Oh, yeah. I remember that part in one of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was in one of the classrooms, right?
No, this was in the hallway.
Hallway, okay.
And then you also see a dummy of Body Bag Tina as well.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next room, you enter a classroom where you see an actress as Body Bag Tina, and you also see Freddy Krueger as well. Mm-hmm.
Good scene. Good scene.
Then the next room, you enter the Roach Motel. This is basically a dream sequence where a girl is turning into a giant bug. And you also see a dummy that has a TV over her head, and Freddy Krueger's glove is coming through the TV. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of the maze.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. That was the...
I hardly remember that, but that sounds like a good scene.
Yeah, that was the scene that creeped me out the most. Yeah.
I would be scared in that scene. You know?
Then you exit the Roach Motel, that room, and then you go down another hallway where you're going through hanging bodies. And then you get to the last two rooms that take place in the famous boiler room. So you started in the house, you went to the school, you went to the Roach Motel, and now you're going to end
in the boiler room.
In the boiler room.
And Freddy's were popping out, right?
Well, let's see. After going past the hanging bodies, the next room you enter, you see a girl pretending to be eaten by the Freddy snake.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically the scene is you walk in and there's a giant puppet of the Freddy snake. And the actress legs are pretending to be inside the thing, and she's pretending to struggling. It's just like that same scene in La Llorona where the child's in the bed and she's trying to struggle and the fake. Yeah, it's the same concept.
Like the La Llorona was trying to get her, and Freddy was getting the girl.
Yes.
Okay, I remember that scene when I was watching The Maze.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then the final room of the maze is you're in the boiler room and Freddy chases you out.
It's always in the last room that the character chases you out.
Mm-hmm.
In some of the mazes.
Mm-hmm.
I would be saying, goodbye. Ching!
Right. So now to explain this last part so people understand. So you entered the maze and then you came out and then you have to go for the turnstiles. That's how they counted how many people were going for the maze. That's how they did it. And you have to go past the Shrek pre-show room. And so on the on the right-hand side, you had these black curtains. Just like what you thought for Jason's maze Friday the 13th.
You don't know there's a final scare there.
No.
And there was.
Yes, there was.
Another Freddy.
But you thought it was over. As you make your way back to the park, you have to go through the pre-show Shrek, and there were some black curtains up. And depending on how many people they had for that cast, it depended on how many people they had in the cast for that particular night.
Right.
They would sometimes have one or two more Freddy Cougars get you, and then you were finally done with the maze. And where you got dropped out was right back onto New York Street.
Yep.
And that was the end of the maze. What did you think about that, Mom?
I like how they scare you at the end. One more scare. Just get your juices flowing.
Right.
Really, really good maze when I was watching it. And I would have loved to see this maze, but I didn't. Because I didn't go in 2000, that year.
Yeah, in 2008.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, yeah. Was
it one of your favorites?
Yeah, as I said, the only maze that I really did not like that year was the Strangers.
Yeah.
But the Jason maze, the Freddy Krueger maze, the Leatherface maze, which we are going to talk about in part 2, as well as the Terror Channel that we're going to talk about in part 2, those were my favorites. The only one that I had a problem with was the House of Horrors meets the Strangers. But everything else I enjoyed this year.
When I was watching the House of Horrors meet the Strangers, like, what is this?
Right.
Why did they do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, so that is part 1 out of a 3-part for the history of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2008, the first Halloween event I ever went to. I do not know when part 2 is going to be coming up on episode 7. Please follow me on my social media sites. Follow me on my Facebook page, my Twitter account, aka X account, and follow me on Instagram. That's where you're going to get the latest information. So, as I said, I don't know when part 2 is going to be coming out, but I usually announce when things are coming out on my social media sites. So that way you can get update and stuff like that. There's a couple of things that I'm going to be announcing on my social media sites on Tuesday the 3rd. So definitely follow me on my social media sites, because there's some stuff that I'm going to be announcing that's going to be coming onto video form as well as podcasting. So definitely, if you want to see what those updates are, definitely follow me on my social media sites. So, as I said, today is Monday, October 2nd, 2023. This was part 1 of the Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2008 history. Part 1 where we talked about the story, we talked about the dates, we talked about the main icons, the mini icons, the slogan, and talked about the first 3 mazes. House of Horrors meets the Strangers, Friday the 13th, Camp Blood, and then Nightmare on Elm Street, Home Sweet Hell. So that is pretty much it, guys. I'm going to be wrapping up soon, so I want to thank my guests or my co-host, however you want to say it. My mom, Marcia, for joining me for this part 1.
You're welcome, James.
So, Mom, any final thoughts you want to say before we wrap up this episode?
I really wish I could have gone that year. I don't know why I didn't go. Maybe I wasn't into horror then.
But in 2009, that all changed.
And we'll tell you what happened with me.
When we get to part 1 of Halloween Horror Nights 2009. 9.
So, nothing else. I enjoyed doing these with you, James.
Okay. All right, guys. So that's going to be a wrap for part 1. This is James, a.k.a. Jimmy Pancakes, signing off. And we'll see you for part 2, a.k.a. episode 7, sometime coming soon. Bye.